Ladies and gentlemen, our top focus. A missile Russia claims no defense system can stop. A weapon President Putin calls unstoppable, and a strike that is once again raising global alarm. The Oreshnik is an intermediate range hypersonic ballistic missile named after the Hazel tree. Oreshnik can carry multiple warheads that separate mid-flight and hit different targets simultaneously, a capability usually seen in intercontinental missiles. After launch, the missile rises high into the atmosphere before its warheads descend at extreme speed, making tracking and interception extremely difficult. The missile travels at more than Mach 10, giving defense systems very little reaction time. Why are we talking about this? President Putin has repeatedly touted the Oreshnik missile as impossible to intercept, citing its reported speed of more than 10 times the speed of sound. Well, US officials have played down the weapon's impact. In December 2024, it was a senior US official who described Oreshnik as experimental and not a game changer, adding that Russia likely possesses only a limited number. Since then, Moscow says the missile has entered serial production and has also supplied to ally Belarus. In fact, Russia has confirmed firing its hypersonic Oreshnik missile for the second time, and this time at targets in Ukraine over the last 24 hours, marking only the second known use of the weapon since its debut in November 2024. According to the Russian military, the strike was carried out in response to what Moscow claims was an attempted Ukrainian drone attack on one of President Putin's residences last month, a claim Kyiv has categorically denied. If confirmed that the latest strike carried explosive warheads, this would mark the first operational use of the Oreshnik with full destructive intent. It was first used against Ukraine in November 2024 when it reportedly carried dummy warheads and caused limited damage, widely used as a test launch. What sets the Oreshnik apart, according to experts, is its ability to carry multiple warheads capable of striking different targets simultaneously, a feature usually associated with only intercontinental ballistic missiles. The missile is believed to be based on Russia's RS-26 platform and can carry both conventional and nuclear warheads, though there is no indication that nuclear payloads were used in this attack. Ukrainian officials say the missile fired in 2024 took around 15 minutes to reach the target, reaching speeds of approximately 13,600 kilometers per hour. The Oreshnik is not necessarily more destructive than other missiles, but it is faster, harder to stop, and designed to overwhelm defenses. And that is why its use, even without nuclear warheads, is being watched closely across the world. I'm being joined at this point by Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, who's a retired Lieutenant General but also defense and geopolitical expert, Group Captain V.N. Jha, who's also a geopolitical expert and former Joint Director for DRDO. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining me. Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, to you first. What do you make out of what's happened over the last 24 hours? With what's emerging right now as Russia's use of Oreshnik, possibly again, second time in less than, say, 6 months, what does this really mean?
Thank you, Sneha. At the very outset, primarily because General Winter has already set in very badly. Minus 15 degrees centigrade is the temperatures over there. The Ukrainians are trying to hit the targets in Russia, obviously leaving about 500,000 people in darkness there. The Russians are not going to leave. This is the time, now it's do or die. And now at a time when the Russians are doing extremely well, they are on the front foot, the Ukrainians are on the back foot, much that the Trump administration is putting pressure, everybody else other than the Russians for the needs of oil or whatever be so. But the fact still remains, they have, as you rightly said, had used this Oreshnik missile sometime in test in November 2024. This is a scaled-down version of the Yaz-M intercontinental ballistic missile. Now, this particular missile, obviously, with the speed that you rightly said, is almost 2.5 kilometers to 3 kilometers per second. So you can well imagine at a 10 Mach, that's 10 times the speed of sound. It obviously goes into the category of hypersonic. Supersonic missiles are till about 5 Mach, and this is 10 Mach. And a scaled down version with absolute accuracy, being able to go up into the air. Ballistic, it's not cruise, it's ballistic, goes up with a thrust, comes down with a full speed with the MIRV with 6 explosives, rockets into it, missiles, and taken on to multiple targets. But this kind of a capability, obviously, there isn't any defense system as yet, an air defense system, which can intercept it. No Patriot, nothing that they can have that kind of speed. And obviously, the Russians are using it, and they have used it, as now they said, Lviv. Lviv is just about 60 kilometers from the Polish borders. They have used it on Kiev, they've used it on Lviv. Now they are intending to make sure that now if at all any discussions take place, if at all any discussions on ceasefire have to take place, the Russians are going to dictate. As it is, they're dictating, stating very clearly that they don't intend vacating the areas that are occupied. And at the same time, imposing restrictions on Ukraine to join NATO. So there are so many things happening. So when you go on the table for discussion, you go with a total control over it. And the control is obviously with the Russians at this point of time. The need is at minus 15, if they can put numerous people with no heating arrangement, no electricity, or entire Kiev, Lviv, all of it being destroyed by this kind of a, you can say a game changer, primarily because it can't be intercepted. Till then, almost 80% of the Russian missiles were being intercepted. If they use Oreshnik and they have tried to use other ballistic missiles, they've used cruise missiles, they've used drones, all set are being used by the Russians to cause maximum destruction in Ukraine at this point of time, because the Americans are all not able to sustain, support Ukraine at this point of time. So with this kind of a system, nothing available with Ukraine to defend itself, obviously pressure is on Zelensky that he might well has given, and the Russians that only can think of ending the war. Till then, I don't think the pressure is on Ukraine, the pressure is on America, pressure is on everybody other than Russia at this point of time, because the Russians, though they are also being hit, it isn't that they are not being hit, Russians are also undergoing a little bit of a problem because numerous number, I'm told about 500,000 Russians are in darkness at this point of time. So it's cold, extremely cold, minus 15 everywhere, Ukraine and Russia.
Lieutenant General Kulkarni, you're making a very important point, and you've used 2 words, and that's game changer, and 2, that it cannot be intercepted. This is also something that's widely being discussed across medias and across nations for that matter. Let me just get in Group Captain V.N. Jha at this point. Group Captain, President Putin had said this very clearly. 1, it cannot be intercepted by no systems that are existing right now, but US had countered this. US said this is not a breakthrough weapon. It is not a breakthrough missile that cannot be countered. How true is this, and why is this so lethal, especially for the fact that its warheads can just disengage and take on projectiles and start simultaneous attacks?
Sneha, very good evening to you. Look, the general principle of science is that there is nothing impossible. So if someone says that this missile cannot be intercepted, maybe today it cannot be intercepted, but there will be a time when the technology will advance, it could be intercepted. And second thing is that it is undoubtedly a game changer right now, because presently in the present systems of the target acquisition system or the radar system or the various air defense system, including those in the space, this cannot be intercepted. It can be intercepted, but there is no time for the person to track it and shoot it. So even if it is intercepted, even if you know that it is coming, you are unable to do anything. Basically, missile has 8 principal systems. First is the propulsion. This particular missile has got the 2-stage solid motors and compatible skin. That is another very important subsystem, because skin of the rocket should be able to withstand the type of temperature that it is going to encounter.
Okay.
You may remember that when some satellites come from the space, when the re-entry happens to the atmosphere, it just burns. There's about 2,300 or 2,500 degrees Celsius around that. But this missile, at that speed, in the thickness of the atmosphere, it can go up to 4,000 degrees Celsius of the temperature. So the skin of the propulsion system have to be compatible with this. Second is the aerodynamic control. It is a known system. Third is the navigational control system in the 3D that is slightly different in the different systems of the ballistic missiles. Fourth is the integrated computer system that is the heart of the missiles. As fast as the computer is, as better will be the missile system. Next comes the guidance system. That is very important. There are various types of guidance system: preset, command mode, navigation, beam rider, homing, and composite navigation system. So all guidance systems. So all these are there. And then comes the important thing is target acquisition. Now, in a normal missile, target acquisition is fairly easy. But for traveling or shifting targets, it is very difficult for the Oreshnik at that speed to acquire the target, moving target. So then comes the payload integration. You have mentioned MIRV, multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicle.
Right.
Now, this MIRV, normally by the time it comes to attack onto the surface of the Earth, it acquires a velocity of about 3.5 to 4 Mach, depending on where it has been released and how it's traveled through the upper atmospheric has been there, how much it has acquired the temperature.
Right.
So this is something which is very difficult to come to know. And last thing, the weapon delivery. When someone says that it is conventional as well as nuclear, this missile is the area missile. It is pinpointing the MIRV to a particular spot is very difficult. It is the area missile. So all the, say, 4 missiles MIRV at one go, and another 4 comes thereafter. These are the area missiles. If they are nuclear, small yield nuclear, 4 of them, and that comes in the circular form over an area, it can annihilate.
Okay.
And if the target you have not been able to detect, if you cannot rule out that missiles from hitting, if you cannot neutralize it, then it's a hell of a difficult task for any person to survive within that. Normal explosive, yes, this missile using normal explosive could be there for an area where there is an ammunition depot.
All right.
Where there is some particular thing is being made there, so you want to destroy all this, you can use. So in all this perspective, this MIRV in the present context is undoubtedly a game changer. Despite what Americans say or what British say, they would like to deny the things that it existed. Even
Right.
there are the reports that they had shot down one of this Oreshnik. That is incorrect. So this is what Oreshnik is. And if you can give me a slightly more time about
Allow
this.
me to just allow me to intervene, sir. Allow me to intervene. Let me just. I'm very short on time. I just want to quickly move into another corresponding area. Lieutenant General Kulkarni, to you very quickly. It's not just about military might as well. This may be at a very preliminary stage at this point. We don't know how much of a production really is at mass level. Russia itself has made some claims about it. That's one side of it. But one is military might. Two is the psychological warfare, as it were, and a political messaging. How much of this is a political messaging, considering what's been happening between Putin, between Zelensky and Donald Trump? One is the military might, and one is the political messaging. How much of that is relevant at this point as we speak, considering a lot has been spoken about a peace deal which has not come through?
See, all of it, Shreya, you heard Group Captain Jha tell you the characteristics. He told you us all how the target can be acquired, how they can be destroyed, the speed at which it is going, from how multiple targets it can engage, 5,500 kilometers, no air defense system as yet which can detect it. It's something like total messaging. Being able to tell America, lay off. I intend to do to Ukraine what you probably have done to Venezuela. It's as simple as that. I intend to do to Ukraine and will retain what I have of Ukraine, to do not mediate in a manner which would go anyway. So the Americans are quite clear that at this point of time, the Russians have an upper hand. And these kind of ballistic missiles being fired are indicative of clear political messaging that technologically they're miles ahead of them. Yes, like what Captain Jha said, nothing is impossible. At this point of time, it seems difficult. Obviously, maybe a year later, maybe 6 months later, whatever it may be. But before that, right now, the Russians have an upper hand. They can dictate terms. They are dictating it to Zelensky, and they are conveying it to Trump that, look, it's the time. Zelensky must throw the towel, and that's the end of it if you want the war to end. Or else we will ensure destruction of Ukraine the way the Russians wish to do it. That's it. Yeah.